So today we're going to be discussing internal self-awareness. There's some things that are going on the inside of us and we don't even know why those things happen. Those things wind up keeping us at a place where we don't feel like we can get to the levels or apply for the jobs that we so desperately would love to have. And we're just kind of like, oh my goodness, I would love to. Well, we got to change our mindset from maybe one day to day one. Today could be day one that you could begin to do some of the most amazing things in your life because you broke through the barriers of limiting yourself because of who you thought you were. And so I was at that place for a long time in my life. I kind of got to a place where the awareness of myself was not factual. It was what I was believing, but it really was not factual. There were some things that happened in my life that caused me to live with limiting beliefs. There were some rooms that I would not go into because I felt intimidated. There were some jobs that I would not apply for because I felt like I was way underqualified. There were relationships of people in the community that I would not try to make those connections because I felt like I was not even at that level. Now, I'm not saying to think you all that in a bag of chips. Well, maybe I am, but just a little bit. But to be able to remove some of those limitations, and there's some things on the inside of you that are desires, and we have to go from one day to day one. We got to go from that mindset. We're always thinking one day I would like to, one day I would like to. No, we got to go from one day to today being day one. Let's define this self-awareness thing. It is the ability to perceive and understand the things that make you who you are as an individual, including personality, actions, values, beliefs, emotions, and thoughts. There are some foundational things that make you who you are. Sometimes those foundational things are maybe where we grew up, what side of town we grew up in. Sometimes the foundational issues are perhaps the skin shade that we are, the hair texture that we have. So there are different things that wind up serving as a stumbling block to our perception of ourselves and how we view ourselves. And that begins to affect the things that we allow ourselves to push towards. If we have not gone to the gym in a long time, we would love to get in shape. But when we go to the gym, there's some areas of the gym that we don't even touch because they're like, oh, we're not there yet. Maybe one day, but we're not there yet today. We can push towards these things, but we have to start somewhere, right? And we cannot build a house from the roof down. We have to understand that there are some foundations that we have to lay so that then we could put the studs and then we could put the walls and then we could put in the electrical and all of this stuff. It's growing. We're not saying that you're going to go from 0 to 100. We're saying that we're going to go from 0 to 20 and then 50. And we're going to keep revving this thing up so that we can get to the place where we feel like, man, I'm not at 100, but I'm not at 0. Man, I'm not at 100, but I'm at like 60. I'm not at 100, but man, I'm close. I'm getting to like 80% of where I want to be. And that is what this thing is about. That is what this growing journey is all about. It's getting closer and closer to where you want to be. But you have to ensure that your greatest opposition is not you. Well, sometimes we blame a lot of other people and a lot of other things for the reason why we're not succeeding or we're not going to the level of where we need to be. A lot of times is our own thought process that prevents us and prohibits us from being at the place where we want to be. Our discipline. Do you have discipline to begin to do what it is that you want to do? Some of us want to get to a place where we're losing weight. We pray. We're like, I just want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. But we find ourselves eating the food that we shouldn't eat, that we're buying the things that we shouldn't buy. We consume the things that we shouldn't. And all it is a mere shift in your discipline that will help you to begin to make some of the steps necessary so that you can begin to grow and become the best version of yourself. There are 4 keys that you can apply. It's simple. There's mindfulness, there's self-compassion, there's self-reflection, and then feedback. Feedback is so important because you just ask people, hey, listen, you're around me. What does my attitude look like? Can you give me an attitude check? Or how am I doing? What am I thriving towards? Can you see what my passions are? Feedback is so important, and asking people that are going to be honest with you, not people that are competing with you or people that are going to try to tear you down, but people that love you enough, that are in your corner, want to see you win, but can give you a checks and balance of where your mindset is. And if we start from the first one, of mindfulness, listen, we just got to be present in the moment. Sometimes we're not present in the moment, and we've taken this word mindfulness and we've made it something that's kind of like vibe-ish and kind of like weird. Like, no, mindfulness is simple. I'm being mindful of where I am in the present moment. I'm being mindful of being here and not allowing the anxieties of life to take me to a negative place. Anxiety is worry about the future. A lot of us are so bogged down and so caught up with dealing with anxiety, and that's nothing more than just worried about tomorrow, worried about what's going to happen in the afternoon, worried about what's going to happen in a week. We could just take a deep breath and just relax and say, I'm here right now. And when we could be mindful of just being present, there was a period of time I had to ask forgiveness to my wife because I was so forward thinking that I was never present in the moment. I was always thinking about the next project, the next idea, had vision for all of the future things that I was desiring to do, but I was so out of it in the present moment. And when I realized that, I had to ask my wife for forgiveness. I told my wife, Jeanette, babe, I'm sorry. In my phone, she's listed as Sugar Mama. I said, babe, I'm sorry, because I realized that a lot of times we're having conversations and I'm not present. I'm not even realizing what is being communicated at that moment, because all I'm thinking about is what I'm going to do next and how it's going to work out. Having self-compassion of yourself. You're going to fail sometimes. Don't be so hard on yourself. Realize that there's some things that you're going to do well, and then there's going to be some things that you don't do so well. And then a self-reflection. What are you doing to reflect? What are you doing to ensure that you sit down and evaluate what are the ups and what are the downs? What are the things that you're doing well at? And what are the things that you're not doing so well at? I always tell people that there's some things that we got to start and we got to stop. There's some things that we got to do more and less. There's some things that you got to start doing. Some things you have to start doing today that you have not been doing. You need to start doing them. And then there's some things that you've been doing them for a long time, but you have to stop doing these things. Stop doing them because they're taking you to the place where you don't want to be. There's some things that you are doing, but you got to do more of. And then there's some things that you need to be doing, but you got to do less of those things, because you continue to do those things. Eventually, it will become a problem to you, and what you think is good winds up turning out to be not so good. And so what are some things that you can do to improve? I listed some things out. And so if you're taking notes, I want you to write some of these things down. There's meditation and prayer. There's journaling. You can have a therapist or go to therapy somewhere. There's looking in the mirror and assessing yourself and taking a good look at yourself and doing some reflection and saying, are you happy with where you are right now? And what are some things that you need to do? And taking a hard look deep at yourself and saying, you got to either step it up or, hey, you're doing a really good job. Keep it up. See, not everything is bad. Not everything is negative. Sometimes you just got to give yourself an attaboy. Then there's the screen time, that the people time, right? That you're connecting with other people and relationships. And so I know social media, sometimes we could get stuck in that world, but maybe you connect with friends and family that way. And that could be a place of you not getting so stuck and being negative towards yourself, but that you can open up and build community. People want to be needed and they want to be known. And so when you're in community with people, it allows you to feel like some of the needs in your own personal life are being met that need to be needed and that need to be known. There are other things like checking in with other people. They're clarifying your own values, writing those down, practicing gratitude. I was at a gas station recently and I opened up the door for somebody. The husband and the wife walked through the door and neither one of them said thank you. I was a little offended. I actually even called my wife and I told her, babe, listen, I walked into this gas station. I was being a gentleman. I held the door. The couple walked out, the husband first, then the wife, and neither one of them said thank you to me. And I was a little offended, but I realized that sometimes we're so caught up in our day that we don't even realize that we're not expressing a level of gratitude, a level of thankfulness. Are you thankful that you woke up this morning? Are you thankful and grateful that you may not be where you want to be, but perhaps you're not where you used to be, and that requires a level of gratitude. I want to define for you increasing your emotional intelligence. See, we've become so emotional in a negative way that is the thing that blocks us from the what. Now, I know everyone always says you got to know the why. You got to know the why, right? The why of why you're doing things, the why of stepping into a vision, the why of starting a business. But oftentimes those, if we're not careful, can lead us down to a place of depending on an emotion and letting that be the thing that keeps us connected to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so if you are connected to something and the why drives your emotion, if you're having a bad day, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to want to quit. And so what is it that you're trying to do? You got to define that. You have to get to a place where you understand the strategy of the what. What are you trying to sell? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And the why is good because that keeps us going. But if we're not careful, our emotional intelligence will drive us to a negative place and it will control us rather than us controlling it. Like, I love my wife, right? And I love my children. And if I'm not careful, love can turn into obsession. That would be love controlling me. That's not a good thing to be obsessed. It's good to love them and express that love. And love helps me provide security and helps me provide provision for my family, helps me work hard for my family. But if I become obsessed with my family, then now that emotion overpowers me and it takes me to a negative place. I have to be emotionally sound, and that EQ, that emotional quotient, helps us to ensure that we are doing things the correct way, that we're stepping into the right places, that we're walking in the right direction, that we are aware of our intents, and life does not bring us to a place where it is dominating us to, but that we're taking authority over our every day, and that we are controlling our emotions instead of being emotionally driven. And so I want to give you a warning definition here, and it's don't let self-awareness lead to self-consciousness. The latter is feeling or thoughts that someone is watching you or a person is judging your actions. This consciousness is the negative, overactive evolution of self-awareness, and eventually too much self-consciousness can lead to social anxiety disorder if you're not careful. And so do what you do not for other people. Do what you do not for the likes. Do what you do not for the people that are around you, but do it for you. Practice self-awareness for you. Be aware of who you are. And as a benefit, the people around you will be able to reap because you're paying attention to who you are and you're living with a purpose and you're living on purpose. See, oftentimes folks will buy a new car or buy a house and then they'll post it on social media because they're so excited, and then they're looking for the approval of other individuals. Self-awareness is not for others. Self-awareness is for you. Oftentimes, you just got to look and whatever new thing you've purchased, begin to just be grateful yet again and say, man, I'm so grateful that I could purchase this car because there was a period of time that I was walking and I didn't have a way to get around. And so I'm so grateful. See, when we shift as to our mindset and we begin to get to a place of self-conscious rather than self-awareness, then it begins to tear that thing and it begins to dismantle it. Because when someone doesn't seem to approve of you or approve of the things that you're doing, we pull back and we think that that's not the route that we should be going down. And so your self-awareness is not for others. Your self-awareness is for you so that you can be the best version of yourself. It's not so that you could be the best version for others. You got to get to 100%. And you think, well, you know what? No one is perfect in this world. Well, we should be thriving and striving for perfection. We should be doing all that we can to get to the best place possible, to be the best version of ourselves. I was listening to some guys that were special forces in the military. One of them was David Goggins. Another one, they call him Wacko something. I can't remember his entire name. And David Goggins is always talking about the BUDS training and the special forces. He's talking about how he would get into the instructors' heads by when the instructors thought that they would be tearing these recruits down, tearing down these trainees. The trainees were so pumped up and fired up that the instructors were almost thinking like their training wasn't as tough as they thought it was, because these trainees are just sitting in there and screaming and like, we got this, we can do this. Their thought process was at a place of like, we are going to make these instructors feel like they're not doing anything to us. Now, that's a good thought process, but I love what this other special forces guy was saying. And he was saying this. He's just kind of like, it's not about the training. The training only gets you to the job. Are you willing to do the job? See, self-awareness allows us to prepare ourselves for the job, allows us to prepare ourselves for the business. But if you're so caught up in just the training, if you're so caught up in the glory, it sounds romantic to be able to have other people affirm you and confirm you. But the reality is that are you doing all that you can so that you could be the best that you can be for what it is that you are purposed for? I love training. I've been to a lot of training. I served in the military for 13 years. I joined the Marine Corps and then I joined the Army. There was a lot of things that I trained for, but the training was not the end all. The training was to get me to a place so that I could do a job. Listen, we got to get beyond trying to please other people and make other people happy. We got to get to a place where we are so self-aware of ourselves that we push towards that thriving place and we control our emotional quotient so that we can accomplish purpose. Are you accomplishing purpose in your life? Because if you're not, these are some of the things that we need to be addressing now so that we can get to that place and that we can stand in front of the mirror and we can say, you know what? I'm proud of you. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. These are some things that I want to ensure that you don't ignore. No accountability. When you don't have people that know what you're trying to accomplish, then you have no level of accountability. Who are you answering to? Who are you saying, listen, I did good, or hey, I did bad and I need to do better? Who are the people that you're accountable to? Don't dismiss this topic, because the longer that you ignore trying to figure out who you are, the longer you are going to be prevented from achieving where you're trying to go. Your emotional regulation, if you don't control that, you're just going to be an emotional wreck. Not thinking about your actions, but judging others. That's another strong one. Listen, if you're constantly trying to assess yourself by judging other people or how great you are or how you're not as great as they are, that's going to block you completely and totally. Listen, as a man, most males that walk into a room that try to have this alpha male mentality, they walk into a room and they determine, I could take that guy out. I could take that guy out. That guy, no, that's a big dude over there. I'm not going to be able to do anything against him. He's going to tear me up. I don't want to meet him in a dark alley. We can't judge others. We got to only get to a place where we are evaluating ourselves. I want to challenge you with your self-awareness. Do all those things that I've mentioned during this podcast on today. Do not limit yourself just because what's between your ears has been blocking you from being great. Have a good one. Visit my website at imgrivera.com and all social media platforms at imgrivera. Let's work. Let's do something together and let's grow.